Oh, yeah, that's better. I was thinking, okay, I'll back up just a little bit. So Carlo made 4 exhibits. One was on Eucharistic miracles, one was on Purgatory, Heaven and Hell, one was on angels and demons, and the last one's on the Blessed Virgin Mary. Each one is like well over 150 posters. So I think you've seen the one on Eucharistic miracles. I've had it here a couple times in the past. Other people have it as well. A lot of Knights of Columbus groups throughout the country have it. But I don't know of anyone who's printed out the other exhibits. And so the one that I brought today, I just printed over the summer. It's only been out 3 times. This is its 4th showing, so it's like brand new. And it's the one on Purgatory, Heaven and Hell. And when you go in the room, we just finished setting it up. It's 160 posters. The first part is, you'll see it's got a red border. It's on Hell, and then as you keep going through, it's Purgatory is in green, and then Heaven is at the end, it's in blue. So it keeps getting better, should we say. You start with the Hell, it keeps getting better. And these are different saints or mystics that had some sort of experience with either Hell, Purgatory, or Heaven, or all 3, and they're in different places. And they talked about that experience, however it was. The second one already there is St. John Bosco, and I think he actually has posters in all 3. So this was created by Carlo, and one of the interesting things that St. Carlo said just before he died, like, when he was in the hospital dying, is he told the doctors that when they asked if he was in pain, he said, others suffer more than I do. He wouldn't complain about how much pain he was in, but he did acknowledge that any pain he was feeling, he wanted to offer that for the Pope, for the Church, and that he didn't go to purgatory. He wanted to go directly to heaven. And I understand now, I had heard that before, but the more I'm reading his posters, the more I'm understanding why he said that and why that was so important to him. And even before he died, over that summer, he had told his mother that that was his goal. And that's really a goal that we should all have. You need to aim high, right? You want to go straight to heaven. I mean, if you don't make it, God in his infinite, mercy offers, we have that opportunity of purgatory. But don't aim for that. You want to go straight to heaven, right? Isn't that we all want to be, this weekend, it's going to be All Saints' Day, and we all want to be saints. And yes, I think some saints did spend time in purgatory before getting to heaven, but our goal should be getting straight to heaven. And that really is something that is achievable if you make it a goal, if you think about that, this is what I want to do. And we have to make that as a choice. And to help you, I think reading some of those posters was really enlightening to me. So I'll just give you, one example. I mean, you can read, there's 160 posters, but I'll just give you one example of one of them. And it was the story of purgatory. And this story came from St. Anthony. It wasn't St. Anthony's personal experience, but it was a man who had told St. Anthony that this had happened to him. And this man was in the depths of his suffering. I mean, he was dying, and he was in so much pain and agony. And he prayed to God and asked God to release him from this pain. And an angel appeared to him and told him that God had heard his prayers and that he was going to give him a choice. And he could continue to suffer in that same way for another year, and then he would go directly to heaven. Or he could die right then and spend one day in purgatory. And so the man, without giving it much thought, he was in so much pain and suffering, he said, I'll die right now. I'll go to purgatory for one day. Well, at some point later, that same angel appeared to him in purgatory, and the man was so mad at him. He said, "You liar, you deceiver, you told me it would only be one day. I've already been here for over 20 years, suffering the most horrific of tortures." And the angel said to him, "Oh, undeceive yourself. It has only been a few minutes. Your body on earth is not even cold." So the man realized that, time in purgatory is not the way we experience time necessarily. I mean, that's outside of time. And the pains of purgatory, we think, they're not that bad, and maybe they're actually quite much worse. And he said, no, please, can I change my answer? I will suffer any suffering on earth that God wants for that year, any suffering at all. Just please let me out of purgatory. And God did allow him to change his answer. After all, his body wasn't even cold yet, right? So he went back to his still warm body, and then he, I guess, told that to St. Anthony. And that's how we have that story. So there's just many, many stories of that. So when you think about that, I know, this is an interesting time for me doing this talk right now. My mother-in-law just passed away a few days ago. and we're getting ready for her funeral. Her wake is on Monday, her funeral's on Tuesday. And, I know at a lot of funerals, I mean, I love my mother-in-law. I think she was a very good woman, and I hope and pray that, she's in heaven. But we need to really remember to pray for our loved ones that they may still be in purgatory. A lot of funerals have us privately canonizing everyone, but that's not really what the saints are saying. That don't be so quick to privately canonize people, because they might still be in purgatory. They might need our prayers, and so we want to make sure we continue to give them our prayers. The first section is the one no one wants to ever think about, right? This idea of hell, and for hell of all of eternity. And in addition to some of the posters that Carlo has there, I found this really interesting book. It just, right when I was printing that, it came to me. I heard an interview, and I have some on the table. It's called The Hell There Is by Monsignor Charles Pope. And he's a great author, and he does some really great interviews. I heard a couple interviews of him. And he really makes, it wasn't, I didn't think the book was really that scary, because he kind of points out, God is trying to help us get to heaven. So if we try, you guys are all here on a Friday night. You've worked all week. You may not even had dinner. You came to Mass. You're here staying for a talk. You're trying to get to heaven. That's your goal. It doesn't mean that we're perfect. It doesn't mean that we, might not need to stop in purgatory. But, God is kind of, we have all the sacraments and the sacramentals, and, you're here. So God's not trying to trick us into, oh, you missed this little rule, you're going to go to hell. He's like, hell is really a choice that people make. People decide by their actions, where they want to go. And that he points out, Monsignor Pope points out that, if people hate going to church, and they hate religious music, and they hate praying, he's like, how are they going to like being in heaven for all of eternity? What do you think heaven's like, right? So you're here. I believe you like coming to church. You want to pray, right? You want to spend time with God. You want to talk to God. You're here at adoration. So this is that foretaste of heaven. And of course, we all have to pray for final perseverance, right? We don't want to take anything for granted. We want to always working toward our salvation, and never think, oh, that's it, we got it made. But, this is the path you want to continue on. Now, of course, that for me, I found these thoughts actually scary for, family members that I know and friends that I know. I'm not trying to judge them, but I'm people who get angry about anything religious. And so we need to redouble our prayers and our efforts on their behalf. I do have, I gotta pull them out because I didn't put them on the table, but I do have some scapulars, pray the rosary, wear the scapular. And then people started asking me about all their family members. I said, well, there's also a green scapular. I have some of those too. I'll pull those out. There's a green scapular. And what's that? That's for conversion and healing. It's different than the brown. So you can maybe give those to your family members if they're struggling, if they're willing to hear it. But I thought Monsignor Pope had some really good thoughts on here. He does an extremely thorough explanation and in-depth meditation on the parables, specifically, one. I mean, he says, Jesus talked about, hell, purgatory, and heaven, the four last things, in something like 21 out of 38 parables, over half. But one in particular, he talked about the rich man and Lazarus, right? So the story of the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man had everything he ever wanted, all this feasting food, and here's poor Lazarus, at his feet. He would just love to eat the scraps that the dogs are eating that fall off the table, right? And he doesn't get anything. And what happens when he dies, the rich man goes to hell, and the Hades or whatever, and the Lazarus is up in heaven. And he makes a few really interesting points. He says, the rich man's looking up to Lazarus, and he says, oh, Father Abraham, I'm kind of uncomfortable down here. I don't really like it. It's kind of hot. Could you send Lazarus down to dip his finger, in some water and cool me? Now notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't ask, the rich man does not ask to go to heaven. He knows that he can't go to heaven. He doesn't want to go to heaven. He is so set in his ways. He's still treating Lazarus as his little errand boy. Oh, here, send him down to serve me. Interesting point, huh? In a certain sense, we can't change. At a certain point, probably after our death, right? We can't change. He doesn't even want to go to heaven. So God allows us our free choice. of free will, right? And he's so serious about that free will, he's not going to force us to be in heaven with him. So if we hate everything religious on earth, and I'm not saying you guys do, but we do know people, turn on the news, look at the internet, and people are just spewing hatred of anything religious. Whether it's Catholic specifically or Christian in general, they just say the most vile things. Like, the point is, if you hate everything religious, God's not going to force you to spend all of eternity with him in heaven. And that's what we mean by, that's I think what the church is saying, which is God does not force us. We choose, because God is this gentleman and will allow us that choice. Of course, I'm sure Jesus is saddened by that, right? Jesus says, the road to hell is wide and the path to heaven is very narrow and difficult. And I'm sure he said that with sadness because, why did he die? Right? Why did he suffer on the cross? Because he wants us to all get to heaven. And so these are just some different things that I have thought about as I've been looking at the exhibit. Who is it? St. Catherine of Siena said, "Without God we cannot, without us God will not." All right, so we were made without our consent, right? That's also something that I think St. Augustine said, right? The God who created me without my permission will not save me without my consent. We were made without us having anything to say about it. But now we have to make a choice. There's no option to say, I don't want to play this game of life. I don't want to choose. You can't say that. You have to choose. You have to choose. So God will not force us, but we need to choose for him. So I hope you enjoyed the exhibit next door. I want to not be too long because I know that you guys have already been to Mass and adoration. I want to give you some time for the exhibit. I don't want to just hear talk all night when you guys, it's so late. But I think we're going to have some more talks this weekend. The exhibit will be here all weekend, all day, all tomorrow. It'll be open for a couple more hours or another hour maybe tonight, to 9 or so, 9:30. And then all day tomorrow and all day Sunday. Does anyone have any questions or any thoughts? All right. Hey, thank you so much. I will be around, and I'm going to try and pull out some of those other things like the scapulars that I didn't have earlier. And I can, if anyone wants to come and talk with me too, I'll be happy to speak with you privately. Thanks so much.